Hi friends, and welcome back into my studio. If you are new here, my name is Tammie Ernest and I am a long arm quilter, and here on my channel I like to share customer finishes as well as my own personal projects. Hope you are doing well. If you saw my newsletter over this past weekend, you know that I did a little go-kart driving this weekend. It was so much fun. I've probably mentioned before, I'm a huge NASCAR fan, IndyCar fan during the month of May, but much more of a NASCAR fan. And this past weekend was our oldest grandson's 16th birthday. And so they did a whole driving theme, which is kind of typical for the 16th birthday. And part of that was surprising him by taking him go-karting. And we have a go-kart place. This is an indoor, like the bigger go-karts, not the little ones that you can just get in and go. This is like helmet. You got to watch a video. I mean, the whole thing. And it is in Speedway, Indiana, which is where the Indianapolis 500, if you're familiar with the track there, and the Brickyard 400 are run. So they surprised him that morning. His parents did, and a lot of the guys went. I was helping transport some of the other grandkids to the party, and so I didn't get to go with them when they went in the morning. And so they got there and raced, and they all loved it so much, but it was super crowded. They only got to do one race, and so we decided after our afternoon pool party, a bunch of us decided to go back again in the evening, and that time they let me go. It was so much fun. So like I said, you have to watch this video, and then you wear a neck thing around your neck and a stocking cap over your head, and then you pull that tight little helmet down on and then they strap you into the car. And like my oldest son said, he's like, you kind of remind yourself, just breathe, because it's a little claustrophobic right there when you're sitting in this thing with the helmet on. And but then they let you go, and bam, are you out of there. And it is some are a little crazier drivers than others, my oldest son being one of them. And but they all thought it was a hoot that they were racing their mom. But I loved it. If I go again, I'd be a little more daring to drive a little faster. I mean, I never used my brake, but I wasn't always like all the way down full throttle, because you go around some hairpin turns, and then you go up a ramp and around that and then down, and the very first curve, not the very first one, but one of the curves right before we go up a hill, my oldest son wiped me out on the very first one. So then I was behind everybody for a while. I did pass a couple people, but such a fun time, such a fun time. Back to my thought. I might have mentioned here before, I never want to do bungee jumping. I don't want to do skydiving. Never want to go to the moon. None of that. But put me in a fast race car, and I think I could do that. The whole trip around the track. I think I could. I think I could enjoy that. So anyway, that was this weekend. Just had a great time. I'll get to quilts in just a second. I have two finishes to show you today. Went and played pickleball this weekend, and we don't do a huge amount of pickleball. I think I've only played one other time. So went with some friends who are like avid pickleball players. They play every day of the week, and we went with them. They taught us all the rules, and I think we'll do it again. Steven enjoyed it. It'd be really good for him to continue to play that as well. So just a full weekend, had a lot of fun. And I did get some quilting done. So this first project, so in the cross stitch world and the floss tube, they would say, I have two finishes this week. So not FFOs, not fully finished. These are not quilted, but I have two finishes this week, and I wanted to share. Now this, I guess not technically, I'm caught up on this one. This is Corey Yoder's Mystery Block of the Month, In the Garden. And the next installment for the next border comes out this weekend. So I'm caught up. So I guess I'll call that a finish. But this is a free sew along on her website, on her blog, and on her YouTube channel, totally free. You can download the instructions, everything's there. And like I said, there's another installment for the next border that goes around this one, comes out this weekend. So you'll want to get your hands on it. She gives all the fabric requirements. She gives the schedule. So we only have 2 more months. There's border 5 that comes out on August 15th, border 6 and finishing instructions in September. And then this one is finished. So this month, I do think I shared some of these blocks with you when I was working on it, but this is what we're up to. So this month we are to do all of this around the outside edge. Now Corey's pattern calls for her layer cake called In the Garden. I am using a different fabric line. I am using Modern Prairie. This is Melissa Gilbert. This is her line called Evening on the Prairie. And there's what that looks like. I started with 2 fat quarter bundles. So the directions call for a layer cake, which is 40 pieces. I had 2 fat quarter bundles, each 24 pieces, so I started out with more fabrics, which I like that. That gave me a little bit more variety, a little bit more fabric to work with, honestly. So I have plenty of leftovers from cutting those fat quarters. But at the very beginning of the instructions, the very first month that she gave instructions, she tells you how to cut that layer cake, in my case, the fat quarters, so that you get all the pieces out of them that you need, which was very helpful. So I really like this fabric now that it is in this quilt. It was an okay line. Not a lot of contrast between the fabrics, and so, you know, they all kind of bled into one another. Nice, soft prairie feel, sunflowers, a little bit of autumn feel, kind of that golden and the lilac purple, so kind of that late autumn or like late summer type of feel is what it felt like. So then you also need 2 other fabrics, and I'm using, this is Blossom by Christopher Thompson. And I did bring this with some yardage I have at home. I always encourage you to have some whites or creams, just tone on tones, because I think when you're ready to start a project, say you've got, you know, you get pre-cuts in the Sew Sampler box, a lot of times all you're needing is some neutral fabrics to go along with those. So if you keep some on hand, then you're ready to start a project right away. So I still have, even after cutting for this quilt, I still have probably 3 or 4 yards of this left. So this one has just the tiniest little splatter of little flowers. I do think this comes in other color. I'm pretty sure this comes in other colors. I just have it in the white on white. So that's what I used. And then I also, the dark fabric, the black fabric, this is Shadow Play by Maywood Studios. So kind of a grungy, not a super mottled, but it does have a little bit of some shading in there. Not a solid black, just a little bit of shading, but not as mottled as maybe a grunge. So Shadow Play is the name of that one. And then the 2 fat quarter bundles. So let me pull this in. This border that we did this time was the most intense piecing of this entire quilt. It's really taken me most of the month to get this done. We created 20 blocks that are just like this. So 3 4 patches create this, and then some half square triangle units. And then, so this is 1 block. This is the next one. So a couple squares on either corner, half square triangle units here, and then the 3 4 patches. But then by turning that different directions, you get that zigzag effect. That contrasting fabric really makes for a really distinct, what I want to say, design in the quilt. So that's where your eye focuses, and then everything else is just playing along. And I just love I didn't try to plan this out super well. All I did was, when I was working on one block, I was trying to get different fabrics in that block, not use the same ones in the same block. When I laid this out on my bed, then I don't have a design wall. Here at the studio I do, but at home where my home sewing stuff is, I don't have a design wall, so I laid it out on my bed. And in doing that, I laid out the blocks all in a big circle fashion, not circle, but in the big square fashion. And I only moved a couple that felt like, oh, there were too many lights together, too many darks together. I kind of moved those around. Occasionally I would move a block. You know, if I think on one side of the quilt, I had several of this fabric very close together. And there may still be that. I didn't try to overanalyze it too much. I laid it out, Yep, moved a few blocks around, but you know, sometimes the more you move around, the more confused you get, and it's just better just to go with it. So that's what I did. The middle block was that whole checkerboard, and then the couple borders, and then we had these blocks. These were fun, and then a couple more borders, and then that outside edge. I'm really liking the way this is coming together. And obviously, if you look at Corey's, hers is the In the Garden fabric line, so much more summery feel. But look at this, even in the fall, in the late summer colors, it's still very beautiful. So we don't have a whole lot of fabrics left, so I'm interested to see. I think we do have some, like I said, I have some extra squares because I had more fabrics than are needed, but I do think we have quite a few of 2.5-inch squares left, or I do. I have a ton of them, so I'm wondering if that's going to be something in the border. Another border. So this is what's called a medallion quilt. You're starting in the center and working out, and a very fun difference. A lot of times we work in grids, or a lot of times we work in rows. So a medallion quilt where you're starting from the center and coming out is a lot of fun. So my next finish, I've been sharing this one for quite a while. This is Peaceful Baskets. This was a quilt along in the Sew Sampler box 2 quilt-alongs ago. So last time was the, I can't even think of the name right now, it was the flowering quilt-along, and before that was Peaceful Baskets, and that's what this one was. This is using Camille Roskelley's Shoreline fabric, so her blues and her greens. I've shared with you the 12 baskets, and I have been working on this sashing. So this sashing, these stars are created in the sashing. Those are not blocks themselves. How that is done is we have these long strips of white with blue polka dots, adding easy corner triangles onto every one of those strips. And then in this center cornerstone block is a square and a square, and that is all the sashing between every row, even on the outside edge. And then at the very bottom, in order to finish the star, there is an extra border. This is just white background fabric, but then that finishes the star in the cornerstone. So instead of just having the cornerstones in the center of the quilt, this has the cornerstones around the outside edges as well. And then to finish off those stars so that they're not cut like this, you know, she goes ahead and adds another border with just those flying geese units there, so to finish off the quilt. Very pretty. I like this. Very fun. It was a fun quilt along to do. I do have the backing fabric. I do think this is the called for because I bought the kit when it first came out. So here is the backing fabric. And I was just, this is yardage. It is not a 108. And I was just sitting to figure out how I could do the backing. They sent along it's about 5¼ yards. And so that, and this is 44-inch wide fabric. And this quilt finishes 66 by 86. So I don't have enough fabric to do horizontal seams on this one. Because if I did it with just 2, that's only going to give me, if I have 2 44-inch pieces, that's only going to give me 88 inches if I didn't have a seam, and that's not even enough, you know. And so I was thinking, okay, could I do just do 1 seam, but then add extra, like just some, you know, maybe some of that white fabric, just some extra fabric on either side. I really don't even have enough room for that, because if I piece this together, even you know, if I could get it to 88 inches, which I couldn't with a very big seam for the seam allowance, this finishes at 86. That would give me 1 inch on either side. Even adding extra fabric on top and bottom, I don't feel comfortable. The reason is, if I would start it at the, so say I have a strip of fabric up here. Let me just give you an example. We'll do a little show and tell here. So let's say I did horizontal seams, and I said, okay, it's not quite big enough, so I'm just going to add a little piece of extra fabric to the top so that the long armor has room to load that on the long arm. Okay, so I would load this onto the long arm, and I could start the quilt right here where the backing starts, the very top. If I only have 1 inch of this fabric and 1 inch at the very bottom, I do not feel comfortable that this quilt top is going to fit within the good part of this backing. I don't want black on the back of my quilt. So I would want to start the quilt here, but I cannot guarantee that this quilt with the seams in it, you know, every seam that you have, when you put it on a long arm, it's going to stretch just a little bit. Any piecing in these baskets, and these were set on point, the baskets themselves, any little seams that I have, those are just, even if it's minuscule, you know, a millimeter, but that adds up when you put all those together. And so by the time I get to the end, if it's stretched at all, I'm afraid I would be into the black fabric that would be down at the bottom. So that's not an option, just doing one horizontal seam with 2 pieces of fabric and adding extra junk fabric to the top and bottom. That's not an option. So then I thought, well, can I do 2 horizontal seams, meaning I have 1, 2, 3 backing fabrics, all with 2 horizontal seams. That would give me plenty lengthwise. There's not enough fabric here to do that because the quilt is 66 inches wide. So that means I at least need 74 inches width. Okay. And that one I'm a little more comfortable even shrinking that in just a tad. I need something to attach my leaders to on the very edges, but I can also really judge those sides, you know, where the bottom, I can't see it till I get down there. The sides I can try to keep it in. So I always ask clients to give me 8 inches larger, 4 inches on either side, 8 inches width-wise wider than the quilt. That's my preference. Everybody tries to cheat the rules a little bit and give me a little bit less. Sometimes it's pretty tight. And adding my leaders off to the side, attaching leaders to the side, sometimes can get quite tricky. But for myself, I'm not, you know, even if I need 74 inches wide, that would mean I would need 3 of those. 74 times 3, well, 75 times 3 would be 225, right? And if you measure this out, 5¼ yards is only like 100, 180, maybe if they gave 189, I think it was, and they might have given an inch or 2 more. So at the most, I have 190 inches. And to do 3 horizontal strips, 2 horizontal seams would mean I would need like over 220 some inches. So I don't have enough for that. So that leaves me with the fact that doing a vertical seam is really what they meant for this fabric. Seeing the amount of fabric that they sent, if you cut that in half and join them vertically like this with a vertical seam running down, it's the right amount of fabric. It'll be a little much on the sides because joining those together, I'm going to end up with, you know, about 80 inches wide, and then 190. It was almost, so this finishes at 86, and I think it was like 94. It was like 94, 95 long. So I'm gonna have to do a vertical seam on this one, which is fine. I don't mind vertical seams. I always tell clients, you piece the backing however is best. Obviously with this, 5¼ works for a quilt like this as long as it's a vertical seam. I would need more fabric if I was doing either one of the other 2 scenarios that I gave you. So I totally understand that for a quilt this size, the vertical seam is best. And so I'm not going to dictate to a client saying you have to give me horizontal seams. And the reason is, as a long armor, the reason a horizontal seam is easier to deal with is because when you're loading it on the long arm and you have these long bars, when I get to a horizontal seam, that horizontal seam is across that bar all at one time. And so it's the same thickness, you know, all the way around. If I have a vertical seam, it's hitting that bar every time in one spot. And you know that that's thicker fabric right there, because even if you press seams open, you've got 2 layers of thickness right there where that seam is. So that little part right there is built up, and it's higher, it's thicker than the 2 sides, which are only 1 layer of fabric over and over and over. And so with doing that, you just have to make sure that you don't have any drape down on the 2 sides, and that's why I do use side leaders. Sometimes at the on the belly bar, and not, this is the belly bar, on the back bar, You might have to rotate some of that fabric in just to make sure it's not drooping too much on the back. So it's totally doable. I'm never going to tell a client you can't give me a vertical seam, but that is just an explanation why a horizontal seam is easier to deal with than the vertical seam. But for this one, I'll be doing a vertical seam on that. That's the fabric that they sent along in the kit, and I think it'll be real pretty. And then the binding, I did not bring the binding, but the binding is, let me see if it's in this quilt somewhere. It's blue. It's not one of the fabrics that's in here. It is, so you see this white fabric here that has these gray lines in it. The binding fabric is blue with white lines in it. So it's this blue as the background with white lines on it, and that's the binding that is for this quilt. So that'll give it a nice frame around the outside edge, so it should be very pretty. So we'll see when that gets on the long arm, because I have lots of customer quilts too that are ahead of this one. So those are the two things that I worked on this week, two finishes, until this Saturday when Corey brings out the next border, and then I'll be able to start on that one also. So hope you're making lots of time to quilt, and love to see what you're working on. I do have clients that have been quilting, and they have sent me some projects, and so here are some quilts that I've worked on recently. Two quilts from Brenda, and this first one is a simple Irish chain pattern, classic pattern in the quilting world. To create the Irish chain, all you're doing is creating two blocks, actually creating one block because the other one is just a square fabric. So you're creating a 9 patch, and she has used black and tone-on-tone white for her 9 patch. The fabrics in the 9 patch are all different black colors, so you could create this in whatever colorway you want. 2-color quilt, find all your scraps. These look like they are cut at 2.5 inches, and this could be in leaders and enders projects, so have 2.5 inches of one color, 2.5 inches of your white background print, whether it's that could be scrappy as well, or it could be one fabric, and you leaders and enders. So as you're working on some other quilting project, you would have those 2 stacks of fabrics next to your sewing machine. And when maybe you're strip piecing, you're working on blocks, and instead of running a scrap piece of fabric under your sewing machine, or instead of pulling out that thread and cutting it off, you're simply running another block underneath there. So you would take one of each of these 2 squares and run it along, and then you can start again with your next piecing. But if you do 1, 2, 3, 4 of those, so what you can do is join 1, 2, 3 of them together, and then on the 4th one you just add one more. I could do it this way: 1, 2, 3 of them together. On the 4th one you just add one more black square to the end of that one and attach that to that row, and you have a 9 patch very quickly. This can be done with any size of scraps. Like I mentioned, these look like they're cut at 2.5. This is something that I do with 1.5 inch squares in creating these. I'm actually doing like a 25 patch, but super easy to do just a 9 patch also. So then you're pairing that block, alternating it with just a solid piece of fabric. This one does have white with gray polka dots, so it's adding a little bit of third color into there. And then Brenda has done a border around that. This border is the same fabric that is in the solid squares. And then she has added a fun black and white print, kind of a squiggly type of almost like paint, or could be vines or something like that, but black and white to finish that off, and very cute. So super easy. This could be made as large or as small as you want. You're just alternating those 2 blocks in a checkerboard fashion. But what happens is that 9 patch then creates the Irish chain effect. If you want to get a little more complicated, this is a free PDF on the Fat Quarter Shop website. This is called Double 9 Patch Quilt Block. So it shows you how to make one quilt block. This is creating a 9 patch with 9 patches. So notice that you're creating 9 patch blocks, putting those together to create a larger 9 patch block. And then you could set that into this quilt and you would have you would have 9 patches in your 9 patches. That's the reason it's called a double 9 patch. And you have an even more complicated, what looks complicated, but it's really not, because you're just doing 9 patches. You're doing simple piecing. So this is a free PDF. This is in their classic and vintage series. There is a downloadable pattern if you actually want to know how many of these you need to cut, all the fabric requirements if you're wanting to make a certain size. But if you're just wanting to know how to create the block, this is a free PDF. This one, the directions on this one are going to show using the same fabrics, not scrappy like Brenda has done, not as leaders and enders like I just described, but it's actually going to have you cut length of fabric, or this says 10-inch rectangles, but you could obviously do it with lengths of fabric, lengths of fabric, and join those together first, and then you subcut that. That would make your 9 patches go even quicker. So if you're using one color, just a couple of the same fabrics for all of this, this is a very much simpler way to do that. If you're wanting scrappy, then using it as a leaders and enders and just having those stacks next to your sewing machine works really well also. For the backing fabric, she has used Essentials. This is Essentials by Wilmington. This is a lighter gray, but has lots. I like the gray on the back, not adding a black on the back. I like the gray. And this has lots of circles, wheels, whatever you want to call. Wilmington does have 108s in this Essentials line. So like this can be purchased as a 108 backing. Brenda actually has yardage, but this can be purchased as a 108 backing. They have lots of different colors in that Essentials line. Not all of them have this same circular print on the back. Some are wheels. This is wheels. Some are straighter lines. Some are floral or fauna or whatever, just different, but they're nice backings because they give you just some color. There's greens, there's pinks, there's purples, there's blacks, all the different colors, but instead of having all of them have the same print, they have different prints on them. And so you'll want to check that out. I have linked that down below. So for the pantograph for Brenda's quilt, we did paisley flower. Adding some softness into this. The inspiration from that border fabric that I showed you was kind of an inspiration for this also. So paisley flower, Brenda wanted this nice and open, so it's even larger than you see here. This is just, this paisley, it just kind of reminds me of just a relaxing, not a tight, not dense, but just a relaxing, flowy pantograph is really what I see when I look at this one. So there is some nesting, not huge amount, but there is some nesting so that you can get that nice cohesive look all over your quilt. So noticed a couple spirals, they do echo on themselves or echo back, but they stay a little bit open, but a little tighter also. And then you have a little bit of a paisley on one side. When it's flowing this way, the paisley is in a feather type shape on the top of the backbone. And then what you're not seeing is that when it dips down this way, then the paisley is on the bottom side of that backbone. So just a very flowy pantograph. We did use Omni natural white thread because the background fabrics were in the white. So you can see the size of this. See the paisley on the back of that backbone. Nice and open, nice and large. The white blends very nicely with the background fabrics. It just blends right in. You're not seeing any of that. And because this is a nice open pantograph, you're not seeing a lot of white color on those black squares. So you can see it crosses it sometimes, but because this is nice and open, we're not just hammering it with that white thread. So from a distance, you're really seeing the black. You're not even noticing the thread color. I feel like the pantograph shows up very nicely on the open spaces on the white, but does not overpower that black fabric. Did use the white in the bobbin also, and this backing has enough lighter, although it's gray, it has enough lighter colors in there that white works perfectly on there also. This is just a super quilt. This could be done with all your scraps. It could be done totally scrappy. It could be done in 2 colorways, 1 colorway, like with the black and the white. Add a couple borders on there and it works out very nicely. Her final quilt measured, let me see if I can find that. Where did I write that down? 63 by 63. So it is a square top, but obviously if you want a square or rectangle, it just depends on how many rows and how many columns you do. So great job, Brenda. Brenda's second quilt is a 3-yard quilt. This does come from the book Big Blocks, 3-yard quilts, big blocks. I did not print out the cover, but these are all of the quilts that are inside of that book. So the one that Brenda made is this one right here. This one is called Grace. This one has big blocks, obviously, by the title. So what you're doing is this would be great for novelty prints, and that's exactly what Brenda has done. This is showcasing some novelty prints. This is Jordan Fabrics fabric line called Christmas Blossom, and it does have some metallics in it, but look how it just highlights those, let me pull it in, highlights those Christmas bulbs and ornaments that would be hanging from a tree. So a great book to get if you have novelty fabrics, great kids quilts, because you could really create a theme just in using the fabric that you have, whether it's bulldozers or dinosaurs or puppies or whatever. A great one for Christmas, for children. Maybe you want to make a sewing themed one if you've got some large fabrics that have a lot of nice detail that when you cut up small, you would miss that detail. So leaving it larger, you really see all the detail in that fabric. So a great one for that. This is created with 2 blocks, a little bit similar to the Irish chain one. This block here, let me pull it back a little ways. Here, you can see it here. This block here is created with 4 patches on each corner and a solid square in the center. You have the same background fabric in this block as you do in this block. And then this one is simply the novelty fabric that you're highlighting with a simple border around the edge. But notice how, again, you create that Irish chain feel in between the blocks, connecting them, but you're really highlighting these 2 very nice fabrics. There are a couple borders on this one, which is nice. So you're using some of that fabric in those larger squares, but then you're using, again, to highlight that novelty fabric. And then she has the red holly berries as a border around the outside edge. Very pretty. Then for the backing fabric, this is a minky. This is done in ivory. I know many times I've been calling this cream, but this color is actually ivory. It is a creamy color, not as yellowish. My shirt is a cream color, but it's more yellow into it. So this is a cream color. It's gonna look white compared. I didn't wear the right blouse today in showing this quilt because it's gonna read as white, but it's actually a cream color. Ivory is the name of it, and that is a Shannon Cuddle Minky, and that shows off the pantograph very nicely because you're not going to see it too well on the front. This is Holly Berry Holiday, and this is what the printout looks like. So using those holly berries that are in the fabrics as our inspiration, there are those holly berries. They are built off of a large spiral. That is your moving line. I like that because then it gives some interest in not just holly leaves and berries all over, but that nice big spiral, and then those holly berry leaves are built off of that. So here's a spiral and you have leaves coming off of that. This spiral, the leaves come off of that, and then the berries also. This is in the cream color thread with a light backing and even though Minky, you lose the thread color in it, I didn't want to do something darker on the front because you would see a dark color on the Minky. You wouldn't see it all the time, and that's what's frustrating, is that it wouldn't be like, you know, if you used a gray or whatever, or red, I don't know. You wouldn't see red all the time because your fibers are going to be laying one direction or another. So on some parts of it, they're going to be covering up. I mean, it's just going to depend on how you look at it. But sometimes the fibers would be covering up some of that thread. So it would be kind of splotchy where you would actually see the red thread. So I went with the cream color. Blends nicely with the backing, so we're just seeing all that texture on the backing. But then on the front, you do have some metallics in here. This has gold in the metallic. You could have used a gold maybe. I don't have a gold thread. So the cream on the front really blends nicely, and it's not showing off the pantograph on the front. There is enough busyness on the front with this, between the fabrics and the metallic in the background, that I didn't need to compete with thread color with the top. So this is done in the cream, and it blends nicely. And then when you look at the back, you get to see all that beautiful pantograph on the back there. So Holly Berry Holiday is the name of that one. Very fun, great quilts. This one measures, this one, the final measurements on this one are, I don't have it in a good spot on here. Oh, 51 by 62. So a nice lap size quilt, 51 by 62. And just a great one. So not only do you get that pattern, but all of these others, looks like 8 in total, and a great book. So that is one of the 3-yard quilts. And Brenda, you did a great job. Kim sent me this quilt, and it is a Smoky Bear panel. Is this not gorgeous? So Smoky Bear panel, this is a free pattern, and it is done by Riley Blake. This can be printed off from the Fat Quarter Shop. I have linked that down below, but what I want you to know is you don't have to use this exact panel. This panel measures 35 by 42, so if you have a panel that will fit in that area, you can definitely get this pattern. So what I also want you to notice is the pattern on this one is everything, the panel on this one is all of this, what looks like pieced Smoky Bear fabric. That is all part of the panel. The addition to the panel begins where you see the brown outline right there. So this is the entire panel on the inside. Then you do have 4 pieced blocks. These are done with evergreen trees. So this would be great if you have a Christmas panel that you're wanting to use. You could obviously change out the colors, but the Christmas trees or the evergreen trees would be very nice for Christmas. But obviously if you have a panel shape or a panel of whatever, you can change out the colors on the sides, and then you can change these blocks. Let me see what size those blocks finish at. Let me see, those blocks finish at 12.5 inches. So unfinished 12 inches. So any of your 12-inch blocks that you want to put in there. So what I would do, I would find your panel, that whatever panel, we all have those panels, we buy them, we think they're cute, and then we never use them. So pick your panel, pull one off your shelf, add some coordinating fabric around the outside edge, and then go to Lori Holt's books, her Farm Girl vintage books. If it's a Christmas panel, go to her vintage Christmas book, pick out one of her 12.5 inch blocks, and you can substitute it in. You could even do 4 different ones. You can do 4 of the same, but this will give you all of your fabric requirements that you would need for the outside edge, and then you substitute the blocks in unless it just goes along with this, with the evergreen corners, but really fun. So get a hold of that. Then let me show you this in a little closer. So these are cute, cute fabrics. I love the Smoky Bear panel there. And then the fabrics are also in that Smoky Bear line by Riley Blake. So this one is like, I think it's called text something. So it's a brown. Then you have this green and black plaid. Then the blue is also a text print, but it's super cute. It's got his little hat in there. It's got some words, mostly words, and just his hat, now that I look at it. It says only you, and you know what that refers to, right? Only you can prevent forest fires. How many of you remember that? Remember that in Saturday morning cartoons. And then the other part says, remember, only you can prevent wildfires, and that's in the circle shape that you're seeing there. So then this is kind of cool too, because it kind of looks like patches, like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, those kind of things. But these are other fabrics that are, this is part of the panel, but you can get other fabrics in this line that would have some more of these. So like the bear print with his face on it. This is some evergreen trees in the blue and the gray, blue and cream, not really gray. Some plaids, the little badge that says only you. So these are kind of highlighting some of the other fabrics that you can purchase in this line. Her backing fabric is a whole collage of everything. The same things that you're seeing in those little patches on the front then are condensed down and done as a whole collage on the back. Very fun. Oh, this would be great in a camper. If you go camping and if you've got an RV or a camper, this is just so cute. Or out around a fire in the fall time, really fun. So for the pantograph on this one, we did go with a theme. This is Pine Tree Meander. So cute. So the pine trees, you also have the stars and the moons. It's pretty much a block shape, so not a lot of nesting. So this is where I'd say make sure you close up those rows. I may repeat that every week, I don't know, and I apologize if I do. But that is what will keep your pantograph looking consistent down your whole quilt. Don't leave much space in between the rows. Leave about as much space between the rows as you see is in the spacing in the pantograph. So about how far the different trees are and the width between them is about how much you want to leave. And you can kind of see that just the very edge of the red, which would be the next row below it. So Pine Tree Meander is this one. You obviously can make it large or small. Kim had said a 4 or 5, and so that's what I did on the quilt. And we did use a brown color thread as well. Let me do this on the panel. I think you can see it a little better. So she, on her intake form, she said she wanted brown or blue that is in the quilt. And so the browns, you can see the brown around the outside edge, the brown on his body. So that is the brown that I matched. That is Dark Tan by Omni. And that is the color that I used. So let me show it to you on the... I don't think you can even see it on his body, so maybe a little bit on the green there, some of the whites. So the density, the pine trees on this one are only about 3 inches tall, 3.5 inches tall or so. The stars are the kind that I did in school, you know, just they've got the crisscrosses in the center. Let me show you up on the sky. There we go. We can see that a little bit better. Very cute. Goes right along. I mean, the pine trees look the same. That's so fun. And the pine trees are turned different ways. Now, this is a directional quilt, obviously, because it has a panel. But this Pine Tree Meander pantograph, it doesn't necessarily have to be directional. So whatever, if you've got some other quilt, you could definitely use that pantograph on different quilts because it's non-directional. Notice that the trees are going all different directions. It's not that they're all pointing up. They are all over every direction. Be cute on a flannel quilt. Really cute on a flannel quilt. Such a cute quilt, Kim. Thanks for sending it to me. Evelyn's quilt is the Book Nerd pattern by Angela Pingle. I love this? I love any book related pattern quilt. I think it's so fun. So here is a copy of the pattern front. Notice the background fabric. This one uses more of almost a linen type of color, and all of the books seem to be, not all solids, I was going to say solids, but there's one that's not. This uses 20 assorted fat quarters. Those are used for your book covers. Then it does say 3/8 yard each of 3 separate text prints. Those are what are used in the pages that come, that it looks like the book is open, like you're seeing the binding of the book and the covers, and these are the pages that are sticking up above that if you would have the book open. So it does say text print for those, and I'll show you what Evelyn chose for hers in just a second. And then 2 3/4 yards background fabric. Notice that Evelyn has done a dark blue that really makes these fabrics pop off of this quilt. So whatever your favorite, I would kind of choose your background fabric depending on what your book fabrics are, whatever you're using. Then 1/2 yard of binding, 4 yards of backing, and or you could use 2 yards of a wide backing if you were using a wide backing. So very, very fun. The fabrics on this one are all Charley Harper fabrics. Charley Harper was an artist, and they have now taken that artwork that he did and put it into fabrics. So cute. So very all nature related, but with a modern type of look to it. Line drawings and different bold colors in here. So let me show you some of these. All Charley Harper fabrics. All of the books, no, not all of the books have a little title, but you can see this one does, not a title, but where the title would be is on the binding if you had that. So notice how Evelyn has done the book covers, making sure that she really, I think they are all mirror image, not mirror images, but the exact same on both sides. Well, this one is a mirror image. Notice that one. This one has 2 cows on the front, but again with the birds on there. This one, exact same. Nope, those are mirror images of each other. Do you see those? The cows are the same. Those birds are mirror images. This one is not. It just has birds from that same fabric line in there. This one, same on both sides. I like the binding on this one. It's 3 pieces. So she's done black down the center and stripes on either side. Notice this one with the birds. The fabric on the binding is a musical print, and then also her fabrics that she used for the pages of the book are musical, like this is a songbook, a hymnal or a songbook or something like that. The eagles, then those are mirror images of each other. Notice the fabric that she used down the center is a star. I love that she has coordinated this all together. Then these birds are mirror images of each other, and then a bird fabric in the binding of that one. The next 2 mirror images of each other. Notice this fabric that she has used as the wording in this one is typed. It says graceful, quilted crow, quilts, pink door. That may be a fabric from a shop hop that has all of the quilt store names on it, something like that. These 2 birds, like the bright yellow. And then this print, it doesn't necessarily have to be, bird related. This is a very pale typing, very cute, very cute. Now this one down here, the greens, and then this is script for the wording on that she has on that one. And this binding has 2 spots on the binding on the spine of the book for that one. Those birds, again, that's some type. There's the cardinals, and that has some typed, but a different one. Those birds, and then that's more script. So she's got more than just 3 different wording ones. I'm sure she's pulling from her scraps. Obviously, you could do more than just 3, but that's the minimum that the pattern calls for is 3 of the text prints So cute. So cute. All right, let me throw this back up here. Then Evelyn has used a Charley Harper fabric on the back as well. This is a conglomeration of many of the birds from the front, but a lot of white space in between them. I like the light color in contrast to the dark on the front. Very pretty. Now let's talk about the pantograph. The pantograph on this one, let me show it. Can you see it? She asked for a swallow's pantograph. I don't know if you can see it well. This is a Julie Hurt design, and let me show it to you as a printout. The printout looks like this. Here's what the swallows look like. So going a couple, mostly in one direction. One is a little larger, almost a small, medium, and large. The medium, small, medium, large, medium, and small. I had those backwards. The small one and the medium are pretty similar in size, but I think that this one is just a tad bit bigger. One little loop as it's flying around, and this is called swallows. Not a lot of nesting in this one, so again, close up your rows so that it's very cohesive. You're seeing 3 different passes in this printout right here. For the thread color on this one, we did a medium gray. No, I believe it's a light gray on the top and a medium gray on the back. And Evelyn had asked for a little lighter gray on the front, but a darker gray on the back, which isn't a problem. The darker gray on the back blends nice. They're similar tones, the 2 grays. I didn't have any tension issues, so I don't even know that you see it. But even if there were some little pin points or something from that the darker fabric, the darker thread from the back was peeking through, it's going to blend in with the darker background behind the books. So here, let me show you on the back, that darker fabric on the back. She wanted that pantograph to show up on the back. So you can really see that. You see the swallows, the big swirl. This isn't super tight. This is pretty open. So the largest swallow right here is about 4 or 5 inches tall. The medium, and the way we chose the size of that is there were swallows on here, and she asked, there were swallows on the quilt top in one of the blocks, and she said, want the swallows that are in the pantograph to be about the same size as they are on that book cover. So that is what I did, and there you can see it on the front. Nice big bird. So cute. Such a fun quilt. Now, you may not be into Charley Harper fabrics. You may not be into birds. So whatever your favorite line is, if you want to use a curated fat quarter bundle of some sort, you could do this in school books. I think that would be fun. Different subjects of school, pull from different lines. You could do this as a graduation quilt and do different, the students' favorite titles over the years. You could do, like, these days we have so many fabrics to choose from. I mean, we've got the Anna Green Gables fabric, we've got the Jane Austen fabric and others like that, or Benjamin Bunny and Peter Cottontail, and all of those. You could really do different fabrics on all of these different books and have a great baby quilt if you did all nursery rhyme books or something like that. I love Evelyn's idea of using these specialty fabrics to really highlight the fabrics. These are one of those fabrics you need to use in the little bigger pieces, because if you cut them too small, you're just not going to get the impact. You're not going to see the beautiful drawings that are on them. So by highlighting them in the book covers, it really lets those fabrics shine. You really get to enjoy that artwork. But this is a great pattern for whatever your favorite interest is. This would be a great gift as well, to curate it for someone in your life who would really enjoy a quilt like this and have all of their favorite things on it. So Evelyn, a great job. Really love your quilt. This little quilt is Sarah's quilt. This measures 36 by 36. And I don't have a lot of information about the pattern or the fabrics, but I just wanted to show you with this little one how you can use your scraps in a pattern. So Sarah has done this quilt several times. She always does it in primary colors, but it's just a great stash buster and to use up fabrics that you may not use in any other quilt. So notice that it is done in blocks. So you have a square. In the center of the square are two black pieces. Those are rectangles that are joined together. Then around the outside edge of that, she has chosen a specific colorway. So in this one, it is oranges. Those are on either side of the black in the opposite way. So these black are running vertical. The two oranges on the top and the bottom both run horizontal. And then you're adding your side borders. Those are two different pieces of fabric. So in total, you have 6 pieces of orange and 2 pieces of the black. Notice in the block next to it, it is 2 white prints. Now these white prints have a lot of black on them as well. They're not tone on tone. They're white with black prints on them. And then the black ones are the opposite. They're black with white printing on them. So in this one, in the block next to it, we have 2 white rectangles. Those are both running horizontal. And then on either side, you have the green rectangles running vertical. Now you're making these blocks in the exact same manner, but when you're putting them in the quilt, you're alternating them. The center of this one is vertical. The center of this one is horizontal, vertical, horizontal. So in this quilt, the way that I have it oriented, the white centers are always horizontal, the black centers are always vertical, but the blocks are made the exact same way. So in this one, the 2 vertical white pieces, the 2 green ones, I said that wrong. These 2 white ones are horizontal, these 2 are vertical, and then the greens on either side, they are 2 prints pieced together to be the exact width of that unit, and then you add those to the top and the bottom. So this would be a great leaders and enders. If you're cutting your rectangles, join 2 white ones. You're cutting your rectangles in the black, join 2 black ones. And even joining 2 oranges together, end to end, okay? And then once you get a good amount of all of those, you can sit down and really plan out, do I want the oranges and the blacks together or the whites and the oranges together? She's done a good contrast, and notice like the greens are paired with the white ones. Well, I was going to say that, but look, here's a yellow one with white in the center. Here's a yellow one with black in the center. So it's just, you just need enough blocks that you're alternating that pattern throughout the entire quilt. And just using up all those scraps. Everything's in here. I mean, snowflakes and polka dots and batiks and stripes and flowers and geometric shapes. I mean, it's all in here, but if you cut it small enough, that just goes really nicely together. So this is 6 by 6 blocks, and that's what creates the 36 inches by 36 inches. So just a nice little baby quilt, a little lap thing that you can throw out on the floor, lay baby on to play. Her backing fabric, let me show you this up close. This is a black and white owl print. This is a glow-in-the-dark print. So if it is, I assume I've not used these in the past, it doesn't feel any different. I mean, it just feels like cotton. But my understanding is the owls are a glow-in-the-dark. So if they're in light for a long time, and then you turn out the lights, I assume it is going to glow for a while. But this does come in different colorways. This is the black with the white printing. I did see blue as well. So just look up what is it called? Black Owls Aglow. That is done by Light Up My World by Alicia Jacobs. So you can get those prints. But the black and the white is very neat because it matches those centers on the front of the quilt. So for pantograph on this one, we went with circles. We've got a lot of primary colors. We have a lot of squares. And so just doing the opposite, doing a contrasting by doing circles, I think was a lot of fun. It just gives that hint of childhood. So this pantograph I love. This Omni Natural White thread. All the fabrics are primary colors, so a white goes very nicely. The tone of this is bright. The undertones of this are the whites. And so a cream would have clashed. So the whites is what is in the tone of this one. The pantograph, let me show you the printout on this one. This is called Apricot Moon Bubbles. Apricot Moon is the designer, and this is her Bubbles pantograph. So here's what it looks like. Shrunk this up just a tad bit. It's almost that size. No, it is just about that size that you're seeing on the quilt. Didn't want to do too dense on that one. What I love about this pantograph, no fussy corners to match, no points to match up. Notice how the second row that is stitching out here, it stitches over the row that was just done. So right here is the bottom of the first row. The second row then stitches over the top of that. So if you see the pantograph, this part is the row above it. See how the circles, the bubbles are overlapping? So when you repeat this design over your quilt top, it's not going to overlap automatically. It will be separated by space. But because the design in the pantograph overlaps those circles, we want to close up our spacing between our rows so that those overlap as well. Otherwise, you get this disconnect between the rows and then repeating that. We don't want a huge amount of space because that doesn't match the design that's in the row itself. So you hear me say all the time, shrink up your rows so that the spacing between your rows is very similar to the spacing within your row. This one has no spacing in between those bubbles inside of the pantograph, inside of one row. All of those bubbles overlap. So in my repeat of the design, I also want that pantograph from row to row to overlap each other. And it's great because this one is so easy to stitch out. There are no fussy points. You close up your rows and really, I mean, you can check your horizontal. Once you rotate the quilt, you can check your horizontal to make sure everything's straight. But even if it's off, you're not going to notice because these will overlap. And it's just a great beginner pantograph if you're wanting circles. I love the nature of this one. It's very fun. Simple, but fun. And I think it makes a great statement on this quilt as well. Just goes right along with the whole primary theme of it. So a great stash buster. This obviously can be made much larger. It doesn't have to stay a small baby quilt. You could make this much larger. But with the fabrics that are with this one, and you don't even have to do it primary colors. I mean, you could choose whatever colorways you're wanting, whether it's more muted or whatever. You can make it as large or as small as you want, but a great stash buster, obviously. So, such a cute quilt. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed those client quilts. Always fun to work on other people's projects. I enjoy finishing them up. And like you've seen today, I worked on a UFO. This is something that's from a couple years ago. And then with the Yoder one, I worked on something current. So maybe this week, a little encouragement. Pull out one of those older projects that you have, give it a little love, and then stay up with some of the other projects that are more current. I hope you have a great week of quilting, and I will be back here next week because every quilt is worth finishing. We'll see you then.